Welcome back to the Grand Solar Minimum channel. Today is July 14th. Happy Sunday to everyone. Wanted to do a quick update. It's been a few days since we've been online, and there was a couple of things to talk about for sure. Barry is one of them. We'll get to that here in just a minute. But we are over at SPACEWEATHER.com taking a look at solar wind speeds sitting at 435.5 kilometers per second with a density of 2.8. That's right, our sun is blank again, and if you look over here to the right, there's a coronal hole that we are monitoring. We should see the effects from this on the 15th or the 16th of July. Back to sunspots, we are at 0. That is now 6 days in a row. 124 days without sunspots here in 2019. By the way, that takes us to 64% of the year so far here in 2019, and that number could grow. Last year we went 61% without sunspots. This year it looks like we are possibly going to eclipse that. And I want to report the TCI is now approaching record conditions. Right now we're looking at a 2.82 on our TCI. Our record was in 2009 of a 2.05. So more proof that our upper atmosphere is cooling, as I believe this is probably the lowest I think we've reported on this index since we started watching this, and same with SPACEWEATHER.com for watching this. 2.82. Let's go to Space Weather section here on the GrandSolarMinimum.com. Take a look at our information here first. Let's look at the KP indices first, guys. It's sitting at a 1. 24-hour max is a 2. Zero activity from the sun, solar flares, CMEs, nothing like that to worry about. And there is the SDO motion. Let's go ahead and zoom in a little bit. We don't see any immediate problems right now. That southern region coronal hole, we should be getting the effects of that around July 15th. It's this right here. And then we're watching this as a possible active region, but actually as we watch it come around the eastern limb, it does fizzle out. So there was a period of time where this was being monitored, but as it is turning towards Earth, we are seeing less to worry about with that particular region. So right now the sun is quiet, and let's take a look at the overall look here at the sun. It will continue to be blank at this point for the next at least 15 to 20 days unless we have some kind of sudden development of a sunspot region. So, but right now we are definitely within the solar minimum conditions. And again, I have to report this as a little bit as extraordinary. We are not even really at the bottom of our minimum just yet, and we're already reporting near record temperatures in the TCI, the Thermosphere Climate Index. All right, let's get started with some Grand Solar Minimum news. We start, of course, at the watchers.news. Powerful M7.3 earthquake hits Halmahera, Indonesia. A very strong and shallow earthquake that was registered by the USGS as a 7.3 in Indonesia at 9:10 UTC time on July 14th. The agency is reporting the depth of about 6.2 miles. Epicenter was located about 94 miles south-southeast of Sofifi, North Maluku, and 103 miles south-southeast of North Maluku, Indonesia. Majority of the people felt very light shaking. There were a few that had some strong to very strong, about 56,000 people. So far, no damage or deaths have been reported. There are no tsunami warnings out at this time as well. Again, a 7.3 out in Indonesia. And they are actually saying that there is a low risk of likelihood to casualties or damage. Recent earthquakes in this area have caused secondary hazards such as tsunamis and landslides that might have contributed to losses. And at this time, we are not speaking of any. All right, strong and shallow 6.5 earthquake hits near the western coast of Australia. Strong earthquake registered by Geoscience Australia, 6.5, hit near the west coast of Western Australia on 5:39 UTC time. on July 14th. So 2 big earthquakes, both of them pretty shallow, actually almost the exact same depth. One was a 7.3 in Indonesia, and then we have the 6.3 here in Western Australia. No people living within this area of the earthquake, and 45,000 people have been estimated to feel moderate shake. About 1.5 million felt light shaking. There is no tsunami threat with this as well. The USGS issued a green alert for shaking-related fatalities, which means very low. No chance of that at this point, based on the information that's being reported. So, watching the seismic activity as of late, obviously we've been focused on California, and there's still a lot of people holding their breath right now. Everyone is following that situation very closely. And as that happens, we are now starting to see Indonesia, which kind of has been stealing the headlines much of the year. It seems like we get a 6.5 or higher in the Indonesia region on a regular basis, and has kind of deceased for a little bit, but now we have more. And of course, this earthquake here in Western Australia, and then increased seismicity alerts raised for the Seismic volcano in Alaska. The Alaska Volcano Observatory is raising the aviation color to yellow and the alert level to advisory at the Seismic volcano, the observatory said at 21:09 UTC on July 12, 2019. The last eruption of this volcano took place in 2015, a very weak VEI-1. This change is based on increased seismic activity over the past few weeks, accompanied by elevated surface temperatures at the summit. Now, this is according to satellite data. These observations represent departure from normal background activity at this volcano, but do not necessarily indicate that an eruption will occur, according to the AVO. Seismic is monitored by local seismic and infrasound sensors, satellite data, and a web camera. So they have their eye on this. There's some more geological information here. Also, I think I didn't put it in, but I do believe there's another volcano that we are experiencing activity from as well. Not just this one here. Yeah, more intensive eruptive activity continues at Stromboli. This is July 13th. So 2 big earthquakes to talk about. One Alaskan volcano that has raised the alert, and then the volcanic activity continues out here at Stromboli. 2 lava flows emitted from the same vents that have remained confined to the upper portion. Lava flows emitted from the central southern area of the crater terrace have covered the upper to middle slope of the scaria. During the night, all active lava fronts have shed incandescent material which rolled down a steep slope. This means volcanic tremor amplitude has not shown any significant variations over the past 24 hours. There's some images from this explosion from this volcano. So the Alaskan didn't have quite this activity, but still. So 2 stories to talk about. More volcanoes to be reported on, more earthquakes, stronger earthquakes, I should say, and also very shallow. Thanks to the watchers.net.news for covering this information. You guys can check them out, get all the stats. And quickly, just an update here. 19.9 million people affected by the floods. 34,000 homes have collapsed. 4.34 million acres of crops have been damaged. 1.3 million people were relocated, and over 500,000 people are in need of emergency aid. The ministry has pledged to make every effort to meet basic living needs, those stricken by floods, intensify the patrol and maintenance of major dams and embankments, deploy more rescue forces in heavily flooded areas, and make contingency plans for serious disasters. We have reported on the crop loss. I believe DAP 2030 said something around 27 to 31% crop loss in China right now, and they just continue to get pounded for flooding rains. Now, what I found, I thought about this for a minute, kind of prove how some of these projects are silly. China's scientists actually were constructing a device that would pull more CO2 out of the atmosphere out there to help with climate change. And as you see, that machinery is not doing a thing. We preach that a lot here on the Grand Solar Minimum, that man does not affect climate. It can't start or stop climate change. Mother Nature is a force that cannot be stopped. And we spoke with Dr. Circus today. A very nice gentleman. He is a doctor of natural, he practices medicine basically, but on a natural level of healing. He doesn't use narcotics or any kind of pharmaceuticals that most of us, unfortunately, have been put on. I know a lot of you out there. But anyway, getting off topic, talking about how we have to continue to watch what is happening around us and identifying the red flags. The constant suppression of this information about Grand Solar Minimum. He also faces a little ridicule because of how he practiced medicine. In other words, to have a doctor who knows how to heal or treat people medically without using pharmaceuticals is going to be very beneficial in a Grand Solar Minimum type situation. So we had a little conversation with him, and Mario is going to get that out to us at some point this week. But a good conversation, but it covers everything. And this doctor, you know, he's been writing about cold climate change now since 2009 and has gotten into the Grand Solar Minimum side of things as well. So if anything, this doctors like him are going to be a huge asset to what is approaching to us here in the future. And over 30 lives lost as floods and landslides hit Nepal and northern India. 14 in Uttar Pradesh districts were affected, with at least 15 casualties. Landslides and floods caused major damage to the state and infrastructure, leading to the collapse of about 133 buildings. The affected districts, there are several of them here, about 14 of them. At least 6 people were killed in Assam. 1,556 villages had to be evacuated, affecting a total of almost 1 million people, about 869,000. And this was as of Friday, July 12th. 17 people were killed in Nepal, with many people still missing, and that's according to RT. And just a common sight here, folks. Constant flooding, it doesn't matter if it's in the U.S. or anything. It's worldwide, folks. Here's a look at the expected precipitation to fall in that region. Very heavy rain continue to fall the rest of the month, particularly over Nepal. Unreal. Approaching almost 2 feet of rain in some areas out here, folks. All right, don't go anywhere, guys. We'll be right back.
Do you like this show? Give us a thumbs up. Want to support us more? Share to your favorite social media platform. Buy a t-shirt or become a Patreon. All links are in the description below.
All right, we're back. And I want to start with on our climate news. CEI files formal complaint regarding NASA's claim of 97% climate scientist agreement on global warming. Yay, finally. This is common sense right here. I'm glad this is now happening. The Competitive Enterprise Institute, CEI, petitioned NASA to remove from its website the claim that 97% of climate scientists agreed humans are responsible for global warming. The petition, filed under the Information Quality Act, points out that major flaws in the studies cited by NASA to substantiate its claim. It requests the agency to remove the claim from its website and stop circulating it in agency materials. While NASA asserts the 97% claim is supported by a number of studies, CEI contends that the claim has major flaws that have been documented by critics, and these include, and these are just a couple here, incorrectly categorizing scientists who take no position as endorsing the view that humans are responsible for climate change, failing to include relevant sources without explanation, And that's a big one, folks. Failing to include relevant sources without explanation. So, and this was something else that we spoke with the doctor as well. Some folks just don't want to look into the data. They don't want to do the research. They would rather have someone who is trustworthy or maybe someone who is well known to deliver the information instead of going back and looking it up for themselves. So when you say 97% claim that it's supported and that man causes global warming, for most people in the mainstream, that's enough. Well, if 97% of the scientists say, then what do I got to look at it for? I'm not a scientist. That's my impersonation of the average Joe, I guess. Failing to match the terms used as the bias for study to the claim actually made by NASA. The claim that 97% of the climate scientists believe humans are the primary cause of global warming is simply false, according to Devin Watkins. He's an attorney for the CEI. That figure was created only by ignoring many climate scientists and views including those undecided scientists. It is time that NASA correct the record and present unbiased figures to the public. Under guidance released by official management and budget in April, NASA has 120 days to respond to this request for correction, and its response must include a point-by-point response to any data quality arguments raised in the request. That is great. If you guys look here in the blue link right there, you could read the full request for correction there. So 120 days. Let's mark that on our calendars. Today is the 14th. Roughly looking at what, 4 months? So by this time in November, right before we all sit down to eat turkey with our families, we should know or have the correction, or at least an attempt by NASA to correct. It'll be interesting to see what they have to say for themselves, especially going into November, because I'd be shocked. And I guess you have to kind of know that the unexpected could happen at any time. I mean, we were expecting a third earthquake out in California, and it didn't happen. That doesn't mean it won't happen still, but it didn't happen like we thought it did. Right now, there's a lot of scientists that believe this fall and winter, will be a really cold one. According to our data and what we follow, I agree as well. But you always have to have that. There is that possibility, that 1% chance that the unexpected does happen. But I'm sure at this point, from what we're looking at and how we've seen things pan out, by November of 2019, I think NASA will be in a corner where they have no choice but to lower that percent of who claim that humans cause climate change. And another thing too, What's Up With That had an article on their website. I should have included this as well. But they also had an article that shows exactly, or right around about, how much man actually contributes to climate change. And according to the study that was done, and bravo to What's Up With That for posting it, because most people would just avoid it if it doesn't go with their curriculum or agenda. But according to the study, 0.1% is humans' fault when it comes to climate. 0.1% is the impact that this study had found on humans with climate change. That doesn't sound like a lot. And as we spoke before, guys, it's on NOAA's website. You go over their website on impact of cosmic rays. It tells you right at the very beginning of the description of this section that the sun is the center of the climate and weather. At the bottom of that paragraph, it explains that if the cosmic ray theory that is being presented right now becomes true, that it would impact our climate significantly. How is that going to happen, you say? Cloud coverage, cloud nucleation, cloud coverage, more precipitation, more floods. Cosmic rays are increasing on the daily basis, and it is also increasing the precipitation that falls, not just in rain but snow as well. And then you have, with snow, it's a double whammy. You get record snow, and then you got to deal with the melt, and you got to have somewhere for that water to go. And then on top of that, while you're dealing with a record snow melt, you're dealing with record spring rains, and now your floods are happening all over, not just in regions of the world, but everywhere. Everywhere. Every time we do a broadcast, we show you guys footage like this. Every time. Cars driving through water this deep. Every time. Every time we do a broadcast. It is not hard to find. It is not a pleasure of ours either. It's alarming that every time we do a live broadcast, we have this kind of stuff to show you guys in a different part of the country, a different part of the world. So, yeah, Noah was right. If the cosmic ray theory was true, and it is, it would have a significant impact on climate, and it does. And we are seeing that on a daily basis. And one of the things that goes hand in hand when our climate is impacted is our crops. But before I get into crop talk, actually, I'll go ahead and I'll go back to that. But we'll talk crops right now, actually. So I found this article on Dayton Daily News. And yeah, I'm a little biased. I'm from this part of Ohio. But I picked this article because there's actually some truth. And I've been kind of like preaching lately that I feel like a lot of this information is being suppressed. They don't want the public to know what's really happening, how bad it's getting. But I was reading this article here, and kudos to the Dayton Daily News for once. Staff writer Holly Shively for putting out things here. This is a major, major concern. And if I am a reader of this article in Dayton, Ohio, as I know it is a very rural area, there is plenty of farmlands out there. So I'll go ahead and read this for you guys real quick. Ohio farmers have the majority of their crops planted following a record rainfall in the state, but now they must wait and see what the yields will produce. Early farmer surveys show that more than half of all corn and soybeans have been planted by Ohio farmers is expected to have some yield losses. Let me repeat that. More than half of the crops that are planted right now are expected to have yield loss after record delays in planting. At the end of June, 72% of soybeans and 69% of corn were planted and were rated very poor or poor to fair conditions. According to surveys, fair conditions represent a potential yield loss, but the degree is unknown. Poor conditions expect heavy losses, and very poor conditions could result in complete or near whole crop failure. The fact that we're talking about 72% of the soybeans are in very poor or fair to conditions. So the worst case scenario, the best case scenario here, guys, is that fair condition, which is the less of the crop loss. The worst case scenario is very poor, which some are rated very poor, and that's going to be a complete crop failure. Last year, 83% of the corn and 76% of the soybeans were good or excellent. So that just gives you an idea of how different we are this year compared to last year. Huge difference. Almost 100% different. Last year, we're talking about 76% soybeans were good or excellent. That's at the top. This year, we're talking about 72 and 69% at the very bottom. That's a drastic drop, folks. Drastic. It's really insult to injury when you look at the low percentage of crops that are in good to excellent for the whole state, and it's just because of the way the crops were planted. According to Ty Higgins, a spokesman for Ohio Farm Bureau, some crops would never reach fit conditions for planting, but farmers attempted to mud them into the ground. Other times the conditions might have been right, but then rain poured on the Miami Valley again, covering crops, preventing oxygen from getting to the seeds to help them grow. Lawmakers have been seeking extra funding for Ohio farmers impacted by heavy rains, including Governor Mike DeWine, who asked Department of Agriculture Sonny Perdue to issue a disaster designation to provide financial help to Ohio farmers. Ohio's U.S. delegations also sent a letter to Perdue asking that Ohio keep in mind when doling out $3 billion of disaster money to increase prevent plant insurance payment rates from 55% to 90%. Past May 15th, corn crops begin losing an average bushel of corn per acre each day. Late soybean planting can also reduce yields by a bushel every 3 days. Much of Ohio's corn and soybean crop were planted in June, and some farmers were still working into this month to plant the soybeans. We had beans we wanted to get replanted if we didn't get any more rain, but we got rain Saturday night and we got rain Sunday night, so we're done. We're not going to plant any more beans, said Chad Mason, a farmer in Greene and Clinton counties. Farmers across the Miami Valleys are seeing the same issues, where corn usually grows mostly in uniform. This year's crop can range from non-existent to good, all in the same field, depending on where water had pooled, drowning out the crops. In Clark County, every field has something that isn't adequate as well. I don't know that there's ever a perfect year, but it's definitely a lot worse than others, he says. Corn prices have boosted a bit in the Miami Valley as the market expects a shortage. That's very important, by the way. Corn prices have boosted a bit in the Miami Valley as the market expects a shortage. But advertised prices generally are for high-quality corn, and percentage comes off of the quality crop. Let me tell you something. This is what's being peddled in certain grocery stores. I mean, you could see the little logo there. Fresh guarantee, by the way, guys. 100% money back. 4 for $1. Does that look fresh to you guys? These, they're not even green. Usually when you shuck corn, the outer leaves are green. This looks like dried up corn. You look at the quality of this corn, which we have. Very anemic. It doesn't look like it's fully matured. It doesn't look properly grown. It is very light in color, a white sort of corn. We don't see yellow corn around here anymore, which, you know, the white corn tastes good too. But to me, that's an indication that this corn didn't get a chance to properly ripen. But this is what's being sold in stores as fresh, guys. This is fresh. 4 for $1. Let's continue to read here. USDA is planning to resurvey farmers to get a better indicator of how many acres actually weren't planted in Ohio, because current numbers showing 200,000 fewer corn acres and 300,000 fewer bean acres planted than last year seems too low to just about everyone, Higgins says. Wow. So that number is going to go up really high, is what he's saying. Probably over 1 million acres each, if not more. The ground is so saturated still that farmers aren't worried about long stretches of dry weather through July, when rain is typically most important for crop growth. Less than an inch every week would be helpful, though Greg McLynch, a farmer in the northern... this was a farmer. I'm sorry, he was claiming this. Greg McLynch in northern Darke County. The biggest concern ahead is the first frost comes before the crops can mature, he says. Absolutely. Farmers who own livestock will also have to make tough decisions in the coming months on how to best handle their livestock with a shortage of crops for feed and poor conditions for winter wheat that would affect the quality of straw for bedding. By the way, thanks to Matt in Nebraska, also giving me a heads up that right now they are late getting into the fields and cutting the wheat. It's still not right yet for cutting. So what Dayton Daily News is reporting here is the truth. And kudos for them to having the sense to tell people how it is. Now, we'll see how long this article stays up on this website. But I think this is a huge indicator here for farmers to take notice. And not only in Ohio, but Indiana requests federal aid after a crop loss in 88 counties. They have 92 counties, folks. The 4 Indiana counties that were not included in the governor's request are Benton, Rush, Shelby, and Warren counties. Holcomb says persistent rainfall in recent months have left fields saturated statewide, hurting Indiana crops and our farmers. A disaster destination can be requested within at least 30% of one crop is damaged or lost in a county. So There are 88 counties of the 92 in Indiana that meet that threshold of at least 30% crop loss. This is what you're going to eat, folks, this year. And they're having a fire sale on it. They know that they're lucky to even be able to put this in stores to sell it. I'm only wondering about this fall, this end of August. By the way, Ice Age Farmer posted a tweet today. We showed you guys how Walmart has a shortage of sweet peas and green beans. And now Kroger, a grocery chain out of Ohio, Kentucky, I've seen them in Georgia, Indiana. They are now also posting similar signs of shortages of certain canned vegetables. And they hope to have this replenished by end of August. Folks, everybody is counting on what always happens every year. Except this year and last year have not been the greatest for farmers, especially these last 2 years. And 2019 is extremely worse compared to last year. Last year was just a drop in a bucket. We're not getting the truth about acreage that's planted that's actually growing right now. The Dayton Daily News article has probably been the best description on how the situation is on these crop fields. And what I mean by that is that, they're telling us, look, in certain fields, there's corn that's growing really good right now. And then there's other parts, bigger parts of the field that aren't growing as well. And then there's parts of the field that aren't growing at all because of where all the water's been. Our food security. I've been in these Walmart markets, and you look at the shelves that are empty, and it's not that much because you look around yourself and you see all this other stuff that's just fully stocked, a bunch of processed foods. But how much more time do we have before we start seeing this crop loss affecting other food products that depend on soybeans, corn, wheat, any type of grain? If these supply continue to dwindle, we haven't seen anything yet, guys. Sit tight, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with the weather part. Oh, wait, one more thing actually before we go into weather. Part of the climate. We're talking about, I just wanted to bring this up real quick. So in New York, they're passing a policy to ban coal and natural gas and depend on solar, wind, and hydro and nuclear. Now, we all know natural gas is probably the cleanest and cheapest form of energy. And I know a lot of us here in New York depend on natural gas to keep us warm in the winter, especially how cold it got last winter and how cold it's going to get this winter as well. That's all indications are pointing. But I found this story here where farmers in I think over a dozen villages in India. Now, on top of these folks dealing with extreme heat and drought issues and crop loss, and their infrastructure is so old that now they're experiencing regular power outages that last for up to a day. So we haven't even begun to talk about how it's going to be in the future to be a farmer unless they in a state that adopts the policies of the Green New Deal. You think the crops are delayed now, wait until you have to have rolling blackouts because the source of power you have is not reliable. Especially here in New York. If they actually get this if they have their way and this actually happens here in New York, which I really don't believe it will. I think it's going to be too much of a job killer. I think this bill will be extinguished soon. Someone will come in with some common sense and stop it. But if they really pulled out of coal and natural gas, think of how hard it's going to be for us to keep our homes warm if we're constantly having blackouts because the solar and wind and the hydroelectric power plants aren't enough to keep people warm. And if we don't have gas anymore, what are we going to spend money to subsidies for people who have to convert their hot water tanks to electric or go to baseboard heating. There is electric heating that is on a pump that you could have in central air. It's electric. You could do that as well. But I'm just curious, who's paying for all those conversions? Who's paying for that? I don't know about you guys. I mean, I don't know how much it's going to cost to convert a gas water heater into electric. I imagine it's not going to be cheap. Is a power company or New York going to pay for that? I doubt it. So let's hope someone has some common sense so we don't end up like areas like this. And India and third world, second world, and third world countries, these guys are going to be the first ones that really go through the crop loss and the extreme situation to follow after crop loss in certain parts of the world that are second and third world countries. So does the United States have little time? Maybe, I guess. But to have a fifth of our pea supplies vanish over a short period of time is concerning. Mari also informed me that we got a comment from one of our subscribers telling us earlier this year that there was a Walmart employee that was taking seeds off of the shelves, wrapping them up and taking them off the shelves to seed, and asked what is going on. Why are you taking seeds and other growing materials off of your shelves? And the Walmart worker just simply says, we're just following what the corporate office wants us to do. Sounds like they don't want you growing anything at Walmart. They want you to rely buying their product at their prices. And I'll tell you guys, to me, if they're pulling out just basic seeds for people who want a tomato garden or cucumbers or whatever in their backyard, sounds like that they're getting ready to put the pinch on people. Prices are expected to rise this fall, according to Sachs and Goldman, or Goldman and Sachs, however which way you want to say it. They're expecting a huge price increase this fall into the early winter. And then as we get into January, we're going to get the full report this year of what percentage of crops we actually lost. So, some very, very challenging times ahead, folks. And it's in our near future. This is no longer a soft landing situation. It's here. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere, guys.
Do you like this show? Give us a thumbs up. Want to support us more? Share to your favorite social media platform. Buy a t-shirt or become a Patreon. All links are in the description below.
All right. All right, we're back here, folks. Sorry about that. Had a little technical difficulties here. I was talking about Tropical Storm Barry and its track right now. And it does look like that parts of Indiana, Illinois, and Ohio, areas that don't need the rain, are going to get some more rain, according to this track map here. We even have a couple of tracks that have it going into upstate New York. So we'll have to keep our eyes on it as well for us. Mike's weather page is our go-to. Here's a look at our weather map for the United States. And really the big newsmaker is Barry. A few thunderstorm warnings out there in South Dakota and in North Carolina as well. But the main threat is all the flash flooding in Mississippi, Louisiana, parts of Arkansas, parts of Missouri in the near future, western Tennessee. Tornado warnings as well, tornado watches throughout most parts of Louisiana and southern Mississippi, near the Mississippi River. So all the flooding that we have already down there is about to become even a little bit more intense. As here is a live look at our radar situation right now. Plenty of heavy moisture moving through New Orleans and moving further up north into Mississippi along that Mississippi River. Again, this storm is going to be here for a little while. So what kind of precipitation are we looking at? What are we looking at as far as totals? And they have kind of sort of backed down a little bit on the rain totals. They were calling for around 20 inches of rain, and I do believe that we have some spots that could see rain totals that high on the coast. But overall, I think they've pretty much pulled back on the 20 inches on the majority of the area. But I did get a couple of areas to talk about, or articles to talk about with this storm. Here we go. Tropical storm Barry may be weakening inland, but its dangerous impacts will persist in the lower Mississippi Valley, including potential for significant river flooding and flash flooding parts of Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Arkansas, and Tennessee. Barry continues to move slowly over Louisiana as a tropical storm with a forward speed of only 5 to 10 miles an hour after making landfall on early Saturday afternoon near the intercoastal city, Louisiana. Barry's odd lopsided appearance continues with most of its rain falling on the east and southern sides of the storm due to the dry air to the west and the northwest of Barry. And that really, that dry air that was in the north, and it was right in this vicinity right here. We had a pocket of drier air that was here yesterday when this landfall happened. And we were watching the radar and the moisture from the tropics, or the Gulf, I should say. Everything here was in the yellow. But when it got to landfall, it changed over to green. And it made me wonder, this northern air that was the northern part of the storm system that had dry air that was falling into the storm. I think really that is the key factor on why they have lowered some of these rainfall totals down here, because that dry air kind of impacted the amount of moisture that they were expecting in the first place. Still looking at some significant flooding though, folks. I'm not trying to downplay this in any way. Still looking at significant flooding. Bands of heavy rain continue to stream over southern Louisiana and Mississippi, prompting flash flood warnings in some areas. In Jackson, Mississippi, a car was pulled from floodwater early Sunday morning. One street in the city of Petal, Mississippi was covered by 2 feet of water. Over 4 inches of rain has fallen near Lafayette, Louisiana. A stretch of State Highway 83 was closed near Lydia, Louisiana due to flooding on Sunday. A tornado watch is in effect for parts of eastern Louisiana and Mississippi, including Baton Rouge and Jackson, Mississippi, until 7 p.m. Central Time today. Local media reported damage on the east side of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, from the National Weather Service said was likely a tornado late Sunday morning. Livingston Parish law enforcement noticed that power lines were down near Watson, Louisiana, from what they refer to as a likely tornado. Forecast track for Barry, here it is. It's going to continue to move northwest for the time being, and then start to make its hook towards Illinois, Indiana, and the Ohio Valley. It is expected to go through Arkansas and Missouri as well. Flash flood watches remain in effect for Kentucky, western Tennessee, all of Mississippi, parts of Alabama near Mobile, Lake Charles, Louisiana, New Orleans, of course, Little Rock, Arkansas, Paducah, Kentucky. Let me tell you something. Paducah has been in the news a lot this year. We had 2 significant weather events that happened in Paducah this year where they don't usually experience that kind of weather. This is at least the 3rd time I've mentioned Paducah when it comes to flash flood watches. So very active seasons for these folks. And of course, they're on the Ohio River and they do see a little bit more flooding. But just wanted to note that this year they've been in the news for more than just flooding as well. Here's some of those rainfall forecasts through Tuesday. Again, that 5 to 8 window looks a lot better than what we were seeing originally when we were having the possibility of 12 to 18 inches. And that is, now, mind you, New Orleans already saw 8 inches of rain on top of what we got from this storm as well. Here's a look at the river flooding forecast. Lots of rivers will go into moderate to major flood stages, while some will just be in the minor. And I'm pretty sure we have a lot of flooding going on along the Mississippi that is considered major as well. It's not being reported at this time. So what's next for this storm, Barry? Barry downpour is next to aim for St. Louis to Pittsburgh. While the lower Mississippi Valley is bearing down for the brunt of Barry, downpours will spread across the mid-Mississippi and Ohio valleys on Monday into Wednesday with localized flooding dangers. After Barry made a landfall of a Category 1 hurricane midday Saturday, the storm has significantly lost wind intensity, but Barry is expected to become a tropical rainstorm on Monday as its bands of rain and thunderstorms expect to expand farther into the north, into the mid-Mississippi and lower Ohio valleys. The rain will target mainly the mid-Mississippi and the lower Ohio valleys on Tuesday before moving the upper Ohio Valley Wednesday. So more flooding to be expected. A quick 1 to 2 inches of rain in low-lying areas could cause flooding really fast. And this is what we're expecting for much of Ohio, Indiana, Kentucky, Tennessee, Illinois. Barry is going to go through right Indianapolis, Dayton, Ohio, Columbus, Ohio, and moving on eastward as we move further into the week by Thursday and Friday. Now, by the way, the week may end in widespread highs in the 90s with highs between 95 in Ohio and 105 during the Midwest. And here's what's going to be a real big factor with this, guys, too. Not only are we going to see some heat coming up, and let me show you the GFS map. I'll screw this up just a little bit. So right in this region here, we are expecting a little bit of a heat wave, especially up here in upstate New York, where highs are expected to get in the 90s. On top of that, 100% humidity with dew points in the 70s. Now we know why. There's going to be a lot of tropical moisture in the air Wednesday, and that's when the high temperatures start here as well, here in the upstate New York area. Wednesday, tropical moisture, humidity, just oppressive conditions for most of us here in the Northeast. We're not used to that kind of weather, folks. This storm moves off. More moisture comes into the area for Ohio Valley, Kentucky, Tennessee, upstate New York, and the Great Lakes, Wisconsin, Minnesota, South Dakota. The monsoon season continues out in the New Mexico, Arizona region. And really some light shower activity past this week. Next week's going to look almost okay. Notice some snow up there in Canada, folks. Alberta, BC area. Watch out. July snow. That's normal. Again, more light showers developing next weekend. Same thing for the upper Great Lakes, a storm system or two. And by early week, the week after, 8 days out, more precipitation is expected to fall in the Ohio Valley. The south, once again, starts to pick up on intensity. The track where we saw hurricane or tropical storm Barry, again, that area is going to continue to be saturated. By midweek of the 24th of July, severe thunderstorms across the East Coast, so we'll be ready for that. And just an overall wet pattern for the mid-month of July. Actually, these next couple of days might be a little bit moderate after Barry moves through. But after that, we start to see the rain picking up once again in frequency and intensity as well. Another thing we don't see, and this is the last day we can get to, July 30th. The one thing we don't see in this run was any potential for any more Atlantic or Gulf Coast systems, to my knowledge. So, again, we are in the dead smack middle of summer, and we do expect it to be hot. But the rain is continuing to fall, and we spoke about this a couple of shows back where we have now had 3 months in a row where we've had record 12-month precipitation, and that continues. July is not going to be any different. It may not shatter the records like it did in June, but I still feel that we will see higher than normal amounts of precipitation, especially in Dayton, Ohio, where they were sitting in the 30-inch range for rain last month for the entire year. Seattle is sitting at 14-something inches of rain for the year. So you can see places like Dayton, Ohio is getting way more rain than places like Seattle should be getting. But looking at temperatures, guys, highs really struggling to get in the 80s in Ohio. By the 13th, we start to see the 80s now creeping back in the Ohio Valley. Again, northeast staying warm towards the coast, but if you move central New York like Syracuse or Buffalo, you will notice the temperatures are going to be quite comfortable in the mid-70s. Not bad for July 14th, by the way, folks. And here we can see in the temperature readings that Barry is affecting in these areas. This is today's temperature, so we can see where that hurricane, it's got temperatures in Arkansas for daytime highs of 69 degrees. As the storm continues to move, you can see it on the temperature map too, guys. Look at that. There's Monday as it approaches the Ohio Valley. And then by Tuesday, still see those temperature differences. Yep, that's caused by your storm. Meanwhile, the south and the central plains are heating up. Arizona, Southern California. We get out to midweek here. That storm starts to make its exit through the northeast. Again, you can see the temperature difference with all the moisture that we're going to have in the northeast, Ohio, in New York. Mid-70s, maybe high 60s in some spots. And that system finally moves out of here Wednesday into Thursday, and then we start to see temperatures getting back to normal like summer conditions. Kansas, western Kansas, you guys are going to be really hot next week. Starting on Thursday, 101 degrees is going to be the forecasted high for the Almena and Norton, Kansas region. Parts of Nebraska also looking at upper 90s. Across the East Coast, North Carolina, Virginia, South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida, back into those summertime temperatures of 90s to 100s. And really just moderate temperatures for the Northwest. 60 degrees is daytime high out in Portland and Washington. Give me a break. Most of the country will be summer-like conditions as we get into Saturday, July 20th. And then moving towards the end of the month, summer still has a pretty good grip on the majority of the country. But watch out in the Great Lakes regions and the Northern Plains as we start to see some cooling happening here on July 23rd. A high in parts of Iowa, only 74 degrees. Colorado dipping down into the 50s for highs. So a huge shrinkage of heat. And we can see on this map that there's a lot of green in Canada for the nighttime lows, trying to creep its way back into the United States. 70s across most of the region in the Midwest. This is end of July, folks. Ohio temperature should be near 90 degrees at this point. And we're simply not seeing it. And a lot of the reason why we're not seeing it is all the moisture. Our soil is saturated. We do know that moisture causes cooling. And that's exactly what is going on. And look at this map here too, guys. You can see it here where we're experiencing our monsoon rain season. Where's my handy dandy? Oh, come on. I think it's gone. That's my fault this time. Again, I always find a way to fling it out of sight. But here, I'll use this. Look at this right here. And right here. This is where the majority of the monsoon rains are. So you can tell this rain is cooling things down. Boy, that low green, look at that, 40s. Canada pushing its way into western New York, northern Ohio, Michigan. A crispy 48 degrees for your daytime low. And on July 27th, Saturday, 65 degrees near Detroit for a high. Central Syracuse, New York. This map has to be wrong. 69 degrees, July 26th in Syracuse. Evening temperatures in the low 50s. Overnight temperatures almost near 40. Morning temperatures on good Lord. Again, for this region right here to be this cool, 71, 73, 75 in northern Indiana, 75 in Dayton, Ohio, 74 in Cincinnati. Across parts of Iowa, 76, 72, Illinois, Indiana, all in the 70s, Minnesota, Wisconsin, North Dakota, even parts of Nebraska, folks. These are the areas that we have seen the most problems with crops. And we're just not getting that heat that these crops need to grow. It's just not happening, at least according to the GFS. Is there any kind of heat wave on the horizon at the end of July? Maybe. Not so far. July 30th, most of the heat staying in Texas, Oklahoma, and Kansas. That's about generally where it does stay when it's hot. And in the south, daytime highs in Toledo, Ohio, 69 degrees, July 29th. Again, mostly 70s by the end of the month in July. For Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, this is daytime high, Tuesday, July 30th. If you would have told me that I'd have an 83-degree day near Atlanta, Georgia on July 30th, I would have told you you're silly. 83 degrees is not very hot, folks, for Atlanta, Georgia. Yeah, there's heat on the map. It's there. Look at the Rockies. Look at parts of Wyoming and Utah. And obviously the green that's showing up, those are higher elevations, but it's July. And why are we seeing higher elevations cooling down in the mid-50s in July? Maybe that has something to do with it. It's cooling on almost every level of the atmosphere. So pretty much in a nutshell, guys, we got a wonky month coming up with precipitation, some pretty strange temperature readings. When I saw Dr. Roy Spencer's temperatures for June, they went up to 0.47 above baseline. I was worried, it's kind of concerned with July because this is the heat of the month or the heat of the summer right here. But is it? Let's check out what we're going to be looking at in Europe temperature-wise. We had record heat waves out there already. Spain and Portugal, nothing's going to change for you guys. But across the majority of Europe, this is normal summertime weather. Here we are, mid-July. In Fahrenheit, we would say these are 70s and 80s, low 70s and 80s. UK is just perfect weather as far as temperatures go. Gets a little hotter here as we get into late July in Italy, parts of France. And as we go through the month, towards the end, we start that heat to kind of just continue to intensify in the southern part of Europe. So we definitely have a concern for heat in Europe, in southern Europe as well. Italy and Africa, extreme heat, it looks like. But again, that's pretty normal for them in their summertime. So significant temperatures possible for Central Europe again, possibly by late July. But definitely for the southern part of Europe, Italy as well. Parts of Spain, France as well, Portugal. Not as widespread as the last one, but still we are going to be dealing with some difficult temperatures in the near future. Let's take a look at one more region as far as temperatures go. Meanwhile, while I'm doing this, Mara, you want to come on over here and say hello to everybody?
I would love to do that, Jake. We have a lovely crew in the chat as always. Wow, Henrik did a huge super chat. Where have you been? And you don't have to do that. That was very kind of you. Thank you. We haven't seen Henrik in the chat live, and it's Henrik, possibly, it's not
the daytime
that late.
Schedule.
Yeah, the daytime, and we've been talking about trying to figure out a good day to do a daytime show.
And this was why I wanted to kind of do a mid-afternoon show.
Brothers from over the pond. So, let's see where I'm going here. We have a decent amount of mods in the chat too. I want to thank Matt Bros, Jessica, Henrik. I don't know if I've missed someone else in the chat. It's possible. Thank you for modding and helping me out. It's hard for me to catch everything. You guys are doing an excellent job. Someone in the chat said, actually it was a user called History Always Repeats, and they put GSM needs to become sexy, for people to pay attention to it. To what Henrik responds to as, you just need to buy a GSM shirt and you'll be sexy, LOL.
It's all the sexy you'll need, right?
Henrik just makes me laugh. I'd like to thank
some people that I should have done when they actually donated, but it's from PayPal and I get the notifications and I don't check. So thank you, Mohammed, Eileen, Kelly, RK Pearson, and also our Patreon supporters for keeping us going on our channel. And most likely what you guys are powering is our website, keeping that information up.
Yep.
Check out the Maunder Minimum link on the main page. You can see the historical data that I'm putting in so you guys can just learn from history, really. A lot of people are talking in the chat about Ice Age Farmers video with all the canned goods and everything.
That's where I got my info from.
So I actually sent a message to Del Monte asking them if they had a statement about what is going on. It'd be interesting to hear right from them what's going on. I'll probably call them as well to see if I could get more information, sort of press these vendors and for the truth.
Yeah.
Tell us what's going on. Why is it a nationwide shortage on all the shelves? Not only Walmart, but also Kroger and other stores. We're seeing it firsthand on social media. It started out, I saw it when someone shared in our Facebook group an empty shelf. And then I went to Walmart and I saw an empty shelf. And Jake went to a different Walmart and saw more empty shelves. And I started asking people, what are you seeing? Report to us. We have to be alert to this and we have to be communicating with each other. We're a community and we're working together to sort of have a pulse on what's going on. So thank you guys for your involvement in the groups, in the comments, everything. We really, really appreciate it. And I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. I probably missed something. You know, there's a lot going on. Oh, wait, I got another super chat here. Michael McEwen and Terrence Leonard. Terrence said, thanks for the time and effort. Nothing worthwhile is free. And Michael says, thanks for all your hard work and effort. I've learned a lot about GSM from your channel.
Great.
A lot of people like the solar cycles video that we had last. So I'm definitely going to be doing more of those. I'm glad you guys appreciate that.
And guys, not to sound cliche or cheesy, but we do appreciate the donations because that allows us to have more quality productions. That allows us more time to make quality videos such as the solar cycle one that Maria put together for everybody. So again, we do appreciate donations that you guys send to us. It's much, much appreciated. All right, that's going to do it for us tonight, guys. Be sure to check us out on Facebook, Twitter. Also, check us out on our Patreon channel, as we are beginning to start to put some content together to put on that channel as well. We have an interview on there from a podcast called Moving Iron. We will probably continue to filter more interviews and videos onto our Patreon and YouTube channels. Again, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Hit that notification bell. And when you do, click on the notification that says all notifications. That way you get a push notification whenever Grand Solar Minimum goes live. That's going to do it for us today, guys. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. We will be back tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Until then, we will talk soon.